ではもう早速なんですけども、お二人の方準
They're
備
gonna
万全という
have
ことで
the
始めてしまっても大丈
season
夫でしょ
screen
うか？
on the entire
はい。
race.
大丈夫
I
で
guess
す。
so. You can watch the beautiful opening sequence of Oracle of Seasons.
そうですよね、多分。
And you can see how how much faster Ormus runs than
カウントダウンいきま
Shiba's.
す。3、
Ormus
2
using Ormus using the
ス
Game
タートで
Boy
す。
Advance HDMI
始まった。
mod
始まった。
thing that actually overclocks it by
さ
a
て
little bit.
ゼルダの伝説不思議の木の実大地の章時空の章
Alright, so this is Oracle of Ages and Seasons linked any percent.
シリーズとしてはなんかすごい
And linked
やり
any
残し
percent
じゃないかと
basically
思う方も
means
いらっしゃると思い
linking
ま
the
す。
games
実
together
はこの作
and
品なんです
attempting
が
to reach the linked ending
左下に書いてあ
both
るように
games as fast as
2001年にゲーム
possible.
ボーイカラーで発売された作品でして、 ゼルダの
So they're going to be starting off with Oracle of Ages here and then switching to Oracle of Seasons later on
一つ一つ
in
は
order
別
to
の作
reach
品なんで
that.
すけれども、2つを合わせて、不思議の木の実シリーズということで一作品となっております。
You come to see
なの
some
で、
crazy
片方
seasons
片方
gameplay.
大地の
I
章時
recommend
空の章
watching
単体で遊んでも、
seasons
十分
one
楽し
from
いんです
last
けども、
year.
一作品揃えると
You
また
probably
違っ
will
た
be
ストーリーがあって
interested
さらに
in
楽
seasons
しめる、
gameplay.
そんな作品となっております。
It's okay because we have some realistic ages gameplay.
さて早速ですが、何やら顔色の悪い女の人、インパですね。
So the beginning of the game here is just going to consist of a lot of text mashing, as the Aegis intro is very filled with a lot of plot that we don't really care about. We just kind of spam for everything. Not that I can read Japanese anyway, but
時のみこと言われてまして、ラブレンヌ、今回の
it's definitely a good test of your mashing ability with the A and B
大
buttons.
地の名前ですね、ラブレンヌ。そのラブレンヌに危機が迫っているということで、
Yeah, Shiba and Orma have some of the best mashing in the community, so
おっと何やら画
they'll
面
be
が
getting to the
変化し
text
て、
pretty quickly.
They also both have very good times in Oracle of Ages. I believe they're third and fourth place respectively, which is really, really good.
闇の試合ベランが今作時空の章のラスボスとなっております。
So I guess one
And
thing we can start talking about is the fact that before the run started, they both did what's known as a hard reset in order to manipulate the RNG. And the reason why they want to do that is because Oracle of Ages actually requires quite a bit of rupees in the route in order to purchase some things later on and play some minigames. So they're going to be manipulating 200 rupees before entering the first dungeon. And that's done, like I said, by hard resetting the game, which sets the RNG value to a consistent value. And from there, essentially what they want to do is they want to take a specific path, take specific screen transitions as those roll RNG by quite a bit, and later on you're going to see that they're going to be slashing the sword a bunch, and how that works is that they're going to be listening to like the tones or sounds that the sword makes, and we can use those in order to recognize where in the RNG we are, which is very useful.
ベランが過去で悪さしている影響が今の時間に影響出ていますね。やっぱりね、皆さんもよくタイムパラドックスものとか、ご覧になってると思うんで知ってると思うんですけど、過去でいろいろ何かやらかしてしまうと、未来で変わって未来の内容が変わってしまう。
So if you're kind of familiar with Oracle runs but haven't really seen any linked runs, the estimate might surprise you, because it's very close to how long it takes to just do a normal Ages run. And that's because that's most of this runs to normal Ages run. Not to spoil too much of the end, but this game is pretty broken, and so it doesn't take much in terms of a season's play category.
Yeah, especially this year, this category in particular was kind of blown wide open in the sense that over an hour was cut off the previous world record due to some new discoveries being found, which is really interesting. Now that they're out of the intro at least, well, they're still kind of in the intro, but they're going to be basically just heading on here. Now that they have the sword, they're going to be heading to the first time portal in the game to travel in time. That's the main gimmick of Oracle of Ages, is the time traveling, of course. So just some more cutscenes here before things actually start getting exciting.
That warp takes Link to the past. There's basically just two timelines. There's the past and the present. Kind of like Ocarina of Time. And you go between those worlds, and they're very similar, but not quite the same. I guess it's more similar to the Dark World than Link to the Past.
Sort of, yeah.
Interacting with things in the past can change the present. It's kind of the gimmick of this game. The puzzles kind of revolve around going between the two timelines. We'll see that a lot going forward.
さすがにボーケル1本、ウッドソード1本じゃもうどうしようもないということで、今から装備を集めに行きます。こうやってよく見ていくと、いろんなところに茶色いなんか塊、これ土砂ですね。
So in this tower that they're entering, they're going to be obtaining the first or the second item, which is the shovel. And that's very convenient because that's gonna allow them to be able to dig in the ground. And as it happens, if you're really lucky, you can dig up 100 rupees. And you're going to be seeing them both very shortly slash their sword a bunch, like I mentioned, in order to manipulate those.
That fateful day the roosters attacked seasons. Actually, there are no roosters in this run.
So it seems like Orma might have done too many slashes or something. He messed up the manipulation, but you saw Shiba got it. Luckily, there is a backup for it later on, so it's not too big of a deal that he missed it. Those small screens are Oracle of Seasons, so it's the game they're going to be switching to much later on in the run. They're just showing it on the side there since it's going to play a smaller role, I guess, than Oracle of Ages.
Both runners are still in the minute right now, which is pretty good, especially for Orma. He managed to save the second part of the minute here.
Oh, that's nice. And you're gonna see here that they're gonna intentionally fall down this pit, and that's just faster than walking back. Cuts out some backtracking.
Very nice. So this should be able to let them minute a second set of 100 rupees. And some enemy movement, which is convenient.
1個取らなあかんの忘れないようにしとかないと。
ですね。しかも今のスタルフォスからちゃんと5ルピーとハートが1個出てたので戻ってるような気がします。ただ時々なんか
We won't be using any passwords either, actually. You can actually link them with the link cable as well.
一回剣振りすぎたから穴掘りをやめて。
Yeah, and that's actually necessary for this one. Because it exploits like vulnerabilities in the link cable with the trick they're going to be doing later. So you should see both runners here attempting to dig up 100 rupees before the Mac tree as well. There, Orma got it. And Shiba as well, very nice. And you're gonna notice here when they're talking to the Maku tree here, they're actually going to be taking a slight step left, and that is going to influence the position that the next item is going to fall in. To spawn to the right side, and that's actually slightly faster because it's more on the way to where they're going. It used to be a problem to do this before the run was on the Japanese version, but now it's just faster to do that.
スコップを1回使うと乱数が2出れる。スコップで地面を掘るとですね。そういった仕組みになってます。つまり乱数が1つ
Yeah, now they're just kind of make their way to Dungeon 1. You'll notice though that Orma still lacks 100 rupees. But there's many ways to kind of make that up later on. so it's really not that big of a deal.
原因というかきっかけというかものになっております。乱数が遠い場合は、
Yeah, just some more simple puzzles here in order to obtain the key to the first dungeon, lighting these torches. And once again here, he's going to fall down the hole, the left hole in particular, after getting the key. We're just going to bring him back to the staircase. The left hole is better because the screen just scrolls less. That's a slight time saver. Luckily, since they have RNG manipulation, health shouldn't really be a concern here. And also because it's the first dungeon.
実はゲームを開始させた時点から始まってたりしました。このゲームなんですけども、先ほど言ったように、タイトル画面で1フレーム経つごとに、乱数が1つずれます。なので、触れるんですけども、その乱数テーブルをじゃあ初期化するためにはどうすればいいのか。乱数テーブルを初期化するためには、一回ゲームの
So here you're gonna notice that they're going to try and manipulate the spawn of this ghost in this room to be at a favorable position. That ghost can normally be at like any part of the room, and he can like go into the corners as well where you can't hit him, so it's very obnoxious if you don't carry the manipulation. They will not be extending it past this point for now though. You see these like bat enemies, they actually make the RNG manipulation very annoying because they roll RNG on like every other frame that they're moving around. So manipulating RNG past this point is very difficult because you would have to have like frame perfect movement and all of that be consistent. So in that first dungeon, or where they were manipulating earlier, essentially how you deal with that kind of enemy moving RNG that fast is how you just set it up in such a way that you can move through the screens in just a straight line, frame perfectly. And they're gonna be coming up on the first mini-boss to run here in a second. It's gonna be this ghost guy. He's gonna spawn his like 3 little ghost minions or whatever, and you want to avoid those as best as possible. You want to kind of stay to the top right of him, but you just kill him with slashes. That's pretty simple stuff, really. What's more important is that they make sure to kill as many of those ghost buddies as they can while still doing the fight quickly. That's because they're going to manipulate something else after this dungeon. They're going to be manipulating what's known as the powering of Maple the Witch, and for her to spawn, you have to kill 30 enemies by the end of this dungeon. So they've been keeping close track of the enemies they're killing in order to make sure that they can get that. So you're gonna see them hard reset the game here again and slash her sword.
はい、皆さん、高速で剣振ってました。気づきましたでしょうか？そして、2人の画面の敵の動きを見てください。実はシンクロしてるんです。
Coming up is the Pumpkinhead boss. He's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to do a one cycle of him because you can kind of throw his head at him and put him in the corner where he can't move. You'll take double damage from it.
Yeah, they're gonna aim for a double hit by throwing the pumpkin into the wall so it just bounces twice on him, and yeah, just like that.
Very nice.
You'll see them also slashing a little bit before grabbing the heart container since there's a little bit of downtime to advance the RNG even further. Just a slight optimization.
おっしゃる通りです。すごく大変なんです。なんですけども、一つだけ見極める方法がありまして、実は剣を振った時の音って3種類あるんです。よーく聞いていただくとわかるんですけども、高い音と中くらいの音と低い音の3種類ありまして、
So hopefully we can see both people, or both players rather, completing the manip successfully, getting the powering. They're going to be slashing these bushes in a particular way, since slashing bushes like that also rolls RNG, due to the fact that it can drop stuff. So all of this is very well planned. Looks good for both players.
Also, it's very convenient. You get a potion as well and some rupees from this minute.
Yeah, the
which is really helpful
potion.
later on.
The potion basically acts as like a fairy from the other games. It'll revive you to full health if you end up dying at any point. But it's a one-time use, so it's just a nice lifeline since some of the later dungeons can be quite tricky.
Also, we only get 5 hearts in this run, so it can be a little
Yeah.
bit sketchy sometimes.
あれが今作における、お助けキャラみたいなものでして、敵を20匹倒すとあんな感じでフィールド上に出て
We
き
have
てくれ
to
ます。
appraise the ring before we
で、いろ
can
いろ
use
アイ
it
テムを
though.
落として
But
くれるん
luckily,
ですが、
Vitsu lets us appraise our first ring for free.
2人と
That's
も今
nice.
回
Yeah.
本来はランダムに落とすアイテムの中から見事、
Oops.
力の
Seems
指を
like
レベル
Gorma
2と
didn't
いう
get
も
the
のを
ring there,
引っ
but
張り
he
出しました。
realized, so
こ
it's
れが乱
okay.
数調整の力です。
Yeah, looks like both
この
players
力
got
の
the
指輪
minute
レベル2っていう
successfully.
のがとっても強力なものでして、
What the power ring does is
自
it
分の受
increases
ける
the
ダメージが
attack
2倍
damage
に
you
なってし
do
まうんですけども、
by
代わりに相手に与えるダメ
what
ー
is
ジ
it,
が2倍になり
1.5,
ます。
2.5, something like that.
It increases it. It just adds a value of 2 to it. So the base sword damage, a basic sword slash from the level 1 sword does 2 damage, and then the powering will add 2 damage to that. So a slash will do 4, for example, and a spin attack, which does double damage of the sword, would do 4 damage, since 2 times 2 is 4, and then the powering would add 2 to that, so they would do 6, so... It's not
Right.
quite double damage, like some people think it is, it just adds 2, basically.
But the caveat of having the ring on is that Link also takes more damage when hit.
Yeah.
Runners won't be using it all the time. They'll be just equipping it
はい、2匹目がくくれた岩場のところ
during
に。
parts of the game. where they
Yeah,
need it.
he takes an extra half heart every time he gets
で
it,
さらに上下って上に行くと、はい、
so mostly useful for things like boss
階段です
fights.
ね。いや、かくれんぼなんてね、隠れる場所が見つかってたら余裕です
And yeah, this like Lost Woods kind of sequence here, you can get quite lost here in a casual playthrough, but the path is actually set, so if you just go the same way every time, since we're speedrunning, we just know where to go, so it's fairly simple.
壊れちゃってもう入れない。
So that's
どうしようもない
Dungeon
罪で
2
すよ。
there, but unfortunately it collapses in the present, so we have to go back to the past
まあ、本来はここで罪なんですけど
to
も、
find the past
このゲ
version
ー
of
ム
it
思い
where
出し
it's
てくだ
not
さい。
collapsed.
時空の章。はい、時を移動するゲームです。
But first, we could do something a little bit weird, and we'll talk more about this
行けばいいで
later,
すよね。
but for now, just know it's
そういう話
important.
になってくるわけですね。さて、何やろう。
Yeah, they're gonna be helping this lady give her newborn child a nickname, essentially. And it's
It's a very
gonna
nice
actually,
name, too.
この名前
yeah,
は
it seems very random. You don't actually do this in any other category, not even 100%, but it is very useful for this one.
そうですね。
Did some very technical
不思議の
stuff later.
ゲームなので、不思議な名前でも害はないかなと。
なるほどな。だから主人公もズモゲフフっていうすごい不思議な名
Not
前なん
quite
ですね。
sure when
そういうこと
Orma
ですね。
plants the Minip. He could do a Minip here, but
こ
you
の
can
名
really
前
do a
が
Minip anywhere
あ
you
とどう
want.
響いてくる
So
かは
I'm sure
だいたい
I'll
1
find
時
some
間
time to do it
ち
later.
ょっとあったあたりで分かってくると思います。本当に分かってくるのかな。
わからないと思うな。
So here they're gonna be picking up the Harp of Ages. It's gonna allow them to create time portals in order to travel through time on those kind of funky looking tiles like the one outside the house.
流れの調べじゃない、山彦の調べ
yeah,
です。
the name will manipulate something at the very end of the
申
run.
し訳ありません。山彦の調べですね。これが本作、時空の章における、最重要アイテムといえるものでして、今、柴漬さんの画面見てもらえると分かるのですが、この盾ごとを、特定のこんな渦巻き模様のマップがあるところに引くと、はい、今から昔へワープすることができます。この盾ごと、山彦の調べの状態ですと、この渦巻き模様がある場所でしか、この今から昔から今に、ワープする。
So yeah, now they're just gonna be heading back to the forest, except it's in the past this time in order to try head into Dungeon 2.
さて、先ほど D に、
They're gonna have to do some like quest here where they have to find mystery seeds for the queen. I guess we didn't really touch on it earlier, but they got the seed satchel earlier on, and it can basically have it has 5 different seed types that you collect throughout the game. The first seed type that they collected was the ember seeds, and it basically lights things on fire. You can light torches and stuff like that. The mystery seeds are kind of unique in the sense that they can have the effect of any of the other seeds, but they're not super useful for anything except for one boss fight later on. And one trick as well that we will be seeing. But here they're just required to be obtained for the sake of progressing the story.
こんな感じでハテナの実を取りに行ってるわけですね。一体彼はどこでその話を聞いたんですかね。
You'll notice that they only collect one of them as well, because they will all get taken away from them in a second, so there's no point in really getting more than that.
ハテナの実キーアイテムですね。ハテナの実に限らず、不思議の木の実では5種類ある木の実がそれぞれキーアイテムとなっております。ちなみにここの顔を出しているデクナッツ、盾を打ってくれます。先ほどお二人が盾買われたの気づきましたでしょうか。この盾もかなり重要なアイテムとなってきます。この盾が重要っていうのはこの RTA において
So yeah, just some more text mashing here in this castle, another cutscene. The reason why they're doing this is to get the bombs, which are required to enter the second dungeon. The bombs are also a very just useful item throughout the run, because it's gonna help us in doing quite a lot of sequence breaks later on, and it's gonna help us out in some fights as well. So it's a very versatile item in the oracles.
You also may notice they talk to a Deku scrub and use some of their rupees to buy a shield. In earlier routes, we would actually skip the shield entirely because you just don't need it. The shield ended up being one of the most broken items in the game. We found out about a year ago, and you'll see that later on.
Yeah, it allows for a mechanic, I guess, known as shield boosting, which is basically just taking advantage of the fact that when you bump into an enemy with the shield, you, for some reason, gain a ton of knockback, and you could use that in order to make pretty big distances that you're normally not able to make. The bombs actually have a similar use like that throughout the trick known as damage boosting, but the shield actually is even stronger than that, which is quite funny. So in this first room of Dungeon 2, what you're intended to do is flip these guys over with the shield, but you can actually just flip them over with the shovel. And they're also using the bombs to kill them in order to save a menu. It's quite a cool strat. They both nailed it very nicely there.
特定のムービー内のところで動くのもあるし、画面が揺れる回転床って言ったらいいかな。あれとかに乗ると動くのもあったりするから結構
あります。確かに。
いろいろあるせいで分からなくなってしまう。
ですね。なので、不思議の木の実では乱数解析で
So Dungeon 2 is just gonna consist of getting a few keys, and then basically the goal of this dungeon is just to get the dungeon item, because we're going to be skipping the second half of it, as it is not necessary due to a sequence break that exists.
本来はこのトゲトゲのやつ、このトゲトゲが上に向いている状態では攻撃できないので、盾で跳ね返す必要があるんですけども、実はスコップでひっくり返すことができます。これ意外と気づかないんですよね。私も RTA やって初めて知りました。なので盾の数
This room is on a cycle, so it doesn't really matter how fast you go through as long as you get to the platform on time.
Yeah, you see Orma with pretty low health here, but it should be alright, because these enemies tend to drop a lot of health, but also because he has the potion, so even if he were to die, he would just get revived and wouldn't really lose any time.
Yeah, this dungeon is a bit scary, because the mini-boss usually takes several hearts. So health is pretty important, but like Dimitri said, he does have the potion, so...
Yeah, that's a heart drop right there, so that's nice to see. For the mini boss, you typically want to have 2.5 hearts or more, and that's because there is a 2-cycle possible with the powering. It's luck based, it's RNG dependent, and we don't really have a way of manipulating it in this area, so you'll just see if Shiba can get it. Orma would probably actually prefer to not get it, as like I said, getting the 2-cycle RNG will cost you of 2 hearts of damage. So he would end up having to use the potion in that scenario, in case he gets that. So yeah, looks like Shiba's gonna have to settle for a free cycle here, which is pretty average with the powering. It seems like both of them got that actually. How you would get the 2-cycle is that sometimes he just bounces an extra time, and that just lets you slash him an extra time. You're gonna notice here that they're gonna be throwing a bomb to these guys. That's because they're very, very good at sniping Link from their little middle platform. And especially with the powering, they do a full heart of damage with that, so you want to be very careful. So here they're going to be obtaining the item of the dungeon, the Rocks Feather, and then they're going to be saving and hard resetting out in order to start performing the sequence called Dungeon 2 Skip. We're just gonna just skip all of the rest of Dungeon 2. It's gonna involve a series of tricks here. The first one being what's known as the text warp. Essentially how it works is that you have to leave an indoor area on the same frame that you activate a text box. So you're going to be activating the text box by dropping an ember seed into this toilet here. So there's a setup for it, just like that. And now they're going to end up in a completely different area of the map, just due to how it's laid out. And they're going to be stuck inside this tree, but luckily since they're manipulating the RNG, they can manipulate this like to eat Link and actually just get him out of the tree, which is really convenient. And they're going to be continuing this manip into this cave over here in order to do basically the main trick that we like to call Dungeon 2 Skip. It's going to involve a shield boost off of a Moldorm combined with a bomb damage boost in midair. So let's see if both runners can nail this one. Unfortunately, Shiba fell there, so he's going to have to do a backup here. Orma managed to get it successfully first try though, which is very nice.
So I'm loving the psychedelics from Shiba's stream.
So, a bit more information about that trick. It actually used to be like the hardest trick in the run because we used to have to do it with that red soul enemy to the right, along with a bomb boost, and it used to be double frame perfect. And it was just very, very difficult because the buffering in this game, you cannot buffer start or select, which we used to buffer like frame perfectly, really. You just have to time them manually, which is just... It's very, very difficult to get that consistently, so... luckily with the shield, it gives you so much knockback that the trick is far more lenient than the old method. So yeah, nice second try there by Shiba. It didn't lose too much time in the end, but he's like a little behind now. But the main point of this is to get the Pegasus Seeds that you just saw them get. The Pegasus Seeds allows them to run at 1.5 times speed. And that speed also carries over to when you're jumping in the air, so that's gonna allow them to make very far jumps. And as you might be able to guess, combined with the bombs as well and the shield, you can make some pretty unintended jumps that can in some cases sequence break the game pretty badly. So this fight that Orma's doing here against the Moblin King, you're normally supposed to do this before unlocking Dungeon 5. And they have only beaten Dungeon 1 so far, so it's quite a big sequence break. They're just doing this one right now though, because it's on the way. They're right here, so they might as well. It's gonna be required to open Dungeon 5 later, which they will be going into for the item as well. So yeah, that was a pretty clean fight. All you basically do is that you throw the bombs, he throws at you back at him. You have to throw those big bombs, and optimally, you kind of want to throw them as they're about to explode in the middle, so that the Moblin King just moves less and picks up the new bombs faster. It's just slight optimizations though, that don't really make too big of a difference.
Yeah, the difference between HSS skip and seasons and the old D2 skip is that D2 skip lost way more time when you failed it, like 90 seconds or so.
Yeah, because in D2 skip, you have to do an RNT manipulation with the enemies to help you, but in Dungeon 8 and Seasons, you just use your bombs and Pegasus Seeds, so the enemies don't really have anything to do with it.
So that makes it way harder in that sense, where you can't really afford to lose, to fail it more than once.
Right. And you saw Orma there complete a skip known as Graveyard Jump, which basically just involves a bomb boost, a Pegasus Seed jump, and just a slight direction change in the midair. And that allows us to get the Sora's flippers here. So now he's basically completed the entire Dungeon 2 skip sequence. Since normally this is locked out behind the Speeding Dungeon 2.
Yeah, well, you have to get Moosh normally, and use Moosh to get to the graveyard, which only activates after you get the D2 essence.
Yeah, you
So the whole
actually see
sequence
Moosh right here as well.
Yeah. But unfortunately, he is broken, and he just doesn't work anymore. All his flags are messed up. So actually, if you try to get Moosh later on when you get to choose a companion, the game just soft locks. Moosh just doesn't work anymore. You can't get
Yeah,
the area.
you would be unable to finish the game if that were the case.
It is very sad.
Looks like Shiba also got first try Graveyard Jump, very nicely done. Yeah, now the runner's going to be working on entering Dungeon 3, which is going to involve a bit more of a sequence here. They're going to have to like build a raft with the help of this friend down here. So there's quite a long quest for it. It's going to involve another one of the animal companions, known as Ricky the kangaroo. Objectively the worst animal, both in casual and in speedruns, especially in this game, but everyone knows that the best animal companion is Dimitri anyway.
Wow. I disagree, but I think we can all agree that Ricky is the worst, and that's what's important.
This is very true.
Honestly, Martin might be the best animal companion.
Wow, you just called Martin an animal? I don't really know what to think of this. Dimitri kinda meh. Well, I'm seeing some bad opinions in the chat right now. I don't really know what to think here. Anyways, what Orma is gonna do here, he's gonna... Ricky doesn't want to help him unless he has his gloves to punch with, so he has to dig them up there on the beach. And Ricky is useful here because it allows him to jump up those big ledges there in order to reach Tingle. And we need to talk to Tinkle in order to advance the story. What's really nice though with Dungeon 2 skip is that since we have Pegasus seeds now, we have 3 different kinds of seeds, and that's the requirement for Tingle to actually upgrade your seed satchel. So that's why you've been seeing them just use Pegasus seeds everywhere, because they're actually going to get their seeds not only refilled, but they're going to go from only being able to hold 20 seeds of each type to 50 seeds, which is just so good. It allows for tons of Pegasus seed usage, and it just makes everything so much more fast-paced. It's very convenient to the route.
D2 スキップが終わって、今向かってるのが D3 ですね。Dungeon 3.
And yeah, now Orma's gonna take his raft to the sea. He's gonna enter another cutscene and get shipwrecked. Some people like to say that this is when Link's Awakening starts. Personally, I don't really think it makes any sense, but you can believe in whatever you want. But what is going to happen, just like in Link's Awakening, is that he's gonna lose all of his items. They're all gonna be stolen by these Tokei people. And basically the objective of this section of the game is to retrieve all of your items before being able to enter the third dungeon. And there is quite a big sequence break as well later on that's going to significantly speed up the process, involving the shovel and the bombs. So yeah, the shovel is the first item they got back here, and they're just going to be getting them all back one by one.
漂着した、ズモゲフフ君が、トカゲ人に盗まれたアイテムをどんどん取り返していく、そういった場面となっております。
Yeah, this section is really lengthy and it just drags a long time in casual playthrough, where you have to go back and forth between different timelines, but that's all skipped.
Yeah, normally there's a big trading sequence, but yeah, you want to explain how the trick works?
Yeah, so basically, there's this really greedy Tokei. He's just a businessman, you know. He's doing his thing, making his money. You can't really blame him too much, but normally when you grab an item, Link holds over his head, like he would when he got the traded shovel for the bracelet. But you can actually pull a bomb. There's like one frame where Link is able to pull a bomb after he selects the S to trading. But because the bomb is in his hand, the shovel can't. Link can't pick up the shovel, and so it just kind of drops on the ground. That kind of messes up with the flags and the sequence of the trading section. So you can actually keep doing that and making more shovels. So by duplicating shovels, you can keep like re-grabbing them and trading them back to the Tokei to get all your items back.
And yeah, you're gonna notice that he's putting bombs on B. For whatever reason, this trick only works on the B button. So you see he got that first try. It is a frame-perfect trick, and the game runs at about 60 frames per second, so it is very precise, but luckily you have basically infinite attempts at it. So it's not too big of a deal, and it's very fast to retry. So yeah, he got the second one there, and not too many tries, luckily. So you're just gonna see him here, trade them all back and forth here. So yeah, like he said, essentially what's happening is that it like tries to give you the item by placing the item on Link, but when Link is holding the bomb, he's like in a busy state where he cannot obtain the item, so it'll just place it on the ground, and yeah. It allows us to completely skip the trading sequence that's normally present on this island and just makes it a lot more streamlined, which is really nice.
That works, I guess. But yeah, now he can just go in and grab the rest of his items that are normally locked behind either feather or bracelet. And then just go to Dungeon 3. Very nice.
Double first try by Shiba, very nicely done. Again, that's definitely not an easy trick by any means, but it's helped by the fact that it's very fast to retry compared to something like, you know, D2 skip, which you would have to set up an entire RNG manipulation for, whereas this one is a lot more simple in that regard. Despite being more precise in practice. So yeah, now Orm is gonna grab his final item, retrieve his final item, which is the harp, and he's gonna finally be able to warp in time again and be able to enter the third dungeon.
One thing that we do skip during this whole section is that we don't actually get the scent seeds, which you normally need But luckily, there's a place in D3 where scent seeds have a chance to drop, regardless of whether you actually have it in your pouch or not, in your seed satchel. So you can just skip it entirely.
さん到着ですね。ここもここで皆さん大好きな乱数調整が待ち
So
構え
yeah,
ます。
D3 here is going to consist of first getting a small key to the right here, and after that, both runners are going to be going for another RNG manipulation. And that's mainly for one room later on in the dungeon that can be very, very, like, erratic, I want to say. Oh, he actually missed that bomb. That can only happen if you manage to wall clip it, so it's very rare. But anyways, they're going to be doing an RNG manipulation. We're just going to just make a lot of the enemies easier to deal with, especially the Armos enemies later on. There's this room with like 4 Armos statues. And once you activate them, they kind of just start moving around in whatever direction they want, and you have to kill them with bombs in this route, so it can be a very obnoxious room to deal with, but with RNG manipulation it becomes very, very fast. And it's going to be really cool if they end up getting this. What they also manipulate is extra Pegasus seeds, in order to skip having to refill a bunch later on, and also just to make the movement a lot faster.
おめでとうございます。あなたも時空の章 RTA 奏者です。
You also notice at the beginning of the dungeon, oh nice, this is gonna be double hit here. Yep, that's pretty precise to get.
Yeah,
really
and
nice to see it.
It's actually required as well to continue the manipulation, since otherwise he starts moving around and he rolls a lot of RNG and stuff.
But you'll notice at the beginning of the dungeon, there's that crystal there on Shiba's screen. There are 4 of those, and for some reason this dungeon has 4 load-bearing crystals that can be broken with the sword. Not really sure who designed that, but I'm sure. But when that happens, like the upper floor collapses down and combines with the middle floor or something, like that one circular section does. You'll see it later. But the first part of this dungeon, is the goal is to break those 4 crystals.
わかりやすさは大事です。
So yeah, now Ormo's gonna be coming up on the Armos room I mentioned earlier. So he's gonna be wanting to kill these. He's gonna try to get 3 of them in 1 bomb, and then the last one in another bomb. So let's see if he can do this. Yeah, nicely done like that. So yeah, that room is normally a lot more obnoxious in casual play, and even like if you miss that manipulation as well, it can be very... You can lose a lot of time there if you don't get that. And they're going to be extending it slightly further here in order to manipulate Pegasus seed drops from some enemies in the next room. This manip is just so convenient how everything works out so quickly. So shoutouts to Segas as well for finding coming up with this one. It's so fast. Yeah, you see the 3 Pegasus seeds here in a row there. It's amazing how it works out, really. It makes it so that we can essentially spam them.
That's the seed shooter. There's no bow in this game, it's kind of the replacement for the bow. But the cool thing about the seed shooter is that the seeds bounce off walls. They can serve for some pretty interesting puzzles, and some interesting strats you'll see later on. Oh, it's a little weird. You got it still. Very nice from Shiba.
Yeah, the Armos room is like the main thing you want to get. The Pegasus seeds are mostly like a bonus, really, that you can manage without. It is maybe possible to save it here still. We'll see what he does. And yeah, now you see, like Cliff mentioned earlier, that he's destroyed all the crystals, which is basically gonna drop that spinner to the bottom floor and allow him to continue on. Looks like he did successfully recover the manipulation, which is very nice.
Yeah, that's not easy.
That is definitely not an ordinary situation, so very well done. by Shiba. We're coming up here on the mini boss of Dungeon 3, which is going to be this guy in the ground. We just spam shovel to dig him up, and then with the powering, it's possible to get a 1 cycle if you're lucky. Yeah, you see there he kind of missed the slash, which killed it, but still pretty quick fight overall.
Yeah, this game definitely has some of the best like unique items in any Zelda game, I think. This game and seasons.
Yeah, a lot of items in these 2 games, like, they don't have any other reappearances, which makes it quite unique, which is really nice. Here you're gonna see him try to make a precise jump here over the pits. It's like a 1 or 2 pixel window. And there, yeah, so for whatever reason, he never got Sun Seeds earlier on in the island, which you're supposed to get. You don't actually need them to finish the game, but it saves time in the last dungeon we're gonna do. But those bushes, for some reason, can drop Sun Seeds, even if you've never collected them before, so we just get them there. It is luck-based, like, they won't always drop them, so luckily he got them first try.
Being a 25% chance you don't get any seeds or something like that can be pretty irritating. Oh, that was a very nice he hat pattern. Alright, so coming up is the boss of the dungeon. This boss is probably my favorite boss in the game. It's really unique, where if you look at it, it'll fly away. So you need to abuse the fact that the seed shooter bounces off walls, that you can bounce a seed off the wall to hit him. If he's fast here, he'll get a 2 cycle. It can be pretty tough.
First cycle was good. He messed up on the second cycle, but he got good RNG, so it should be okay. It's luck-based there if he goes away.
Yeah.
It would waste quite a bit of time, but luckily he got through just fine.
Very nice fight. If you're really low on seed, sometimes the little things that spawns can drop Pegasus seeds, which can be nice.
Oh yeah, and then the room Shiba's was in there. You're normally supposed to use the seed shooter to hit that lever there, or lever, I mean. But you can actually just hit it with a spin attack from the corner beside it. It doesn't really... It's about even with using the seed shooter, so it's really what your preference is.
視聴者の方にはちょっとちんぷんかんぷんだったと思うんですけども、本来でしたらこの三日月島で、いてての木の実の苗というものを、いてての木の苗っていうものを植えて、でそれを現代で回収してっていう、そういったイベントが
So that's Dimitri, the Dodongo.
はずなんですけど、
They're being bullied, but it's okay.
シャベルドゥープっていうシャベルをなんかたくさん増やしてしまう。
For now, you just kind of take Dimitri to swim to the shore and get off. But we'll be getting Dimitri later and getting his flute.
Yeah. Looks like Shiba also got good RNG there to back up the free cycle. And here you're gonna see the reason why we manipulated rupees earlier on in the run, and that's to buy this flute, like he said, for Dimitri, to get that as our animal companion. It costs 150 rupees, so technically he already has enough for it, but he wants some more rupees for later on, because there's going to be some mandatory minigames that are going to cost quite a bit of money to get through. So we have a backup manipulation just like that. It's very easy, like... you really just, you do like 7 screen transitions after hard resetting, and then you can... It's like very close to the RNG. He also made sure to buy a shield there. And you might think that's weird since we bought a shield earlier on, but actually we just never got the shield back after the items were stolen from us on the islands. We have to buy another one for 2 more skips later on in the run. So you see here the area is like filled with water, and this area is basically it changes its terrain based on the animal companion you have, based on the flute that you get, so it's very cool in that regard. Dimitri happens to be the fastest one. The water area is quite a bit faster than the two other alternatives, so that's why we end up going out of our way to get him, to manipulate those rupees.
偉い。2年前リカバリのあれを覚えた記憶はあるんですけど、
Gonna be a small quest here to retrieve him so that we can use him for that area. But this area is also fixed. That's a very simple solution there in the speedrun.
皆さんもね、こうやって RTA とかスピードランする際には、
I don't know why people
ち
hate
ゃんとメ
mermaid
モ残
tail.
しておきましょう。
The mermaid suit is like
ル
my
ート残
favorite
しておき
item.
ましょう。2年後、3年後やるとき、めっちゃ役立ちますよ。
It's good at going fast, but it can definitely take a lot of practice to be able to use well, since you have to control it with the D-pad instead of with the just swimming with A like normal.
この赤いトカゲですね。
So it can be quite
こいつ
tricky.
を助け出して、
But it moves significantly faster if done well than the normal source flippers.
ダンジョン4、D4 に進むための
See, now he's gonna be activating the Carpenter's quest here. You're actually gonna notice that he's gonna throw Dimitri on this screen here instead of the previous one. And that's because if you enter the screen while you're already on Dimitri, you'll actually get a text box that basically says like, oh, I can climb up waterfalls. That's what Dimitri says, so you skip that by throwing him on the screen of the waterfall. It's a slight time saver. And we also just pick him up here on the overworld, since riding him on the land is very, very slow, so running with Pegasus Seeds is very much worth it in comparison.
20分前かくらいに出てきたリッキーというグローブをつけたカンガルー。
There's also a game-breaking glitch you're able to do here called Dimitri Clip. Shoutouts to Heretman, but it's not really useful for anything. It basically just kills your run more than anything. I've never seen anyone else actually do it, but you can just like clip in between that carpenter using Dimitri, and it's weird physics. It's quite funny. Someday it'll be used in the world record speedrun, I believe.
There's also a weird hitbox on Tokyo Island where you can get caught in between Dimitri and the wall and be stuck.
今、柴崎さんがいるあたりのマップは仲間にした、お供によってマップが変わるという結構不思議な仕組みとなっておりまして、まあ、よかったらね、気になった方は他2匹の中
So here in the city, it's basically like there's this quest where you have to talk to these two dudes and then activate a quest to obtain an item to restore like peace in the city or whatever, because the volcano's erupting. You actually noticed there that normally you're supposed to talk to both of these guys on both sides, because the city is like symmetrical, so there's two of them on each side. But actually for the first guy, you just have to enter his house and then you can leave, and it basically counts as you talking to him for whatever reason, so there's a slight time saver there with that. You only have to talk to one of them. And you'll see Orma here come up. He's going to be obtaining the second song for the Harp of Ages. It's known as the Tune of Currents. And as the name suggests, it allows us to go to the present from the past at any point in the overworld. So we no longer need to be on those like warping tiles. But it's only from past to present, so not the other way around. So it's a little limited still, but it's necessary here to continue.
これはまだやり込みが足りてないな。そうこうしているうちにオリマーさんが、山彦の調べのさらに次の発展系、流れの調べを
So the rest of this area up till D4 is just going to be pretty much use of like a tutorial section for how to use the song.
Yeah, this area can be quite challenging sometimes with the enemies. They can be quite in your way a lot of the time, because optimally you never really equip your sword here. You kind of just run around with the Pegasus Seeds and Rock's Feather to jump. So it's possible to take a lot of damage here. So they'll be trying to avoid that as best as they can.
I think both runners still have their potions still, so shouldn't be too bad if something
そ
bad
れができたら
happens.
この時点でそれができたらこのゲームさらに変わるんですけどね。惜しいものです。
Yeah, it's mostly important because the skip that they're going to be doing in the next dungeon requires you to take a bit of damage, so you want to have a little health going in there at least. So yeah, this section, I don't really know. You're like, you have to push this like block in order to reverse
流れの調べを手に入れて
the, I don't even know what to call it, the nature, the landscape.
ちょっとでも
I don't know. I don't even know what's going on.
You
I
have to
think
push that
that's
rock to
physics.
continue.
誰がやっても
I don't know
Maybe
about you. I
specific.
think everything in this game is fairly
この道中の後
realistic.
に一
You're
番の
probably right.
一番の大技が出てきます。
See, you push that plant into place there, and then going to the present, it's going to be a vine that he can climb up. Gonna be seeing that at some points in the run.
すごい面白いですよね。
Um,
そうですね、こことかだったら水せき止めてる石を昔で動かすと
yeah, so they're almost done with this. They just need to climb up a wall and then do some ceremony thing in order to repair the broken tuning nut that they got in the city earlier from the symmetry guys.
草を伝っていかなきゃいけないんですけど、
And after that, we're going to be entering into Dungeon 4.
動かさなきゃいけなかったり
Also,
と、
Toonie Nut is a
そういう
palindrome
すごい細か
spelled
い
the
ところ
same forwards and backwards
本当にセンス良くていい
because
と
the
思いま
city
す。
is called Symmetry City because it's all symmetrical.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually as well because it's also a palindrome in Japanese as well. I don't remember the name, but
反面もう一つ
if you look it up, you'll
今
see that it's
左
also
右
the same
小さく画
thing
面で映されている第
backwards.
一の章ですね。第一の章はアクション性が強いゲームとなっております。
And you'll see him go out of his way to get some hearts here. Luckily, all of the pots in that house have hearts in them, which can be very nice. Since I mentioned you can take a lot of damage in this section. Also from rocks falling on that wall, they can be quite annoying. Not quite as annoying as a certain other game with wall and rocks, but it's still
The goal here is
possible.
push all those beetles into the hole, but you can actually get caught in the corner
みなむのみ
where they can't push you away.
完全復活です。
You just wait for them to line up and you can knock them in easily.
Yeah, it's a very simple strategy.
ミノムの実を完全復活させたことによってさせて、おっと敵の
Oh,
調
the
子が悪い
Dark
ぞ
Knight is not giving me a good time there.
The Darkness
you
do a
waited a
lot of
bit.
damage.
こういう
It's
の
not
積み
worth
重ね
it
がちょっとイライラしてくるんですよね。
to play the odds.
いやー
Looks like they both
そう
came
いう
up
ところでね、ちゃ
up
ん
the
と
mountain
マ
without
オロ君
taking
が
any damage though, which was
道を開けてく
nice.
れたら、すごい
And you're gonna be
嬉しい
seeing Orma here
嬉しい
hard
嬉しいんですけど
resets, so
どうして塞いで
this
くるん
here
ですか
is another one of the big skips in this run, known as Dungeon 4 skip. So we have Dungeon 2 skip and we have Dungeon 4 skip. Unlike Dungeon 2 skip, this one is actually going to take place inside the dungeon. And it's gonna allow us to reach the dungeon item just basically without doing anything else.
ラッキーフォースキップが
But it's very precise. It involves doing a shield boost combined with
いいような技です。
a damage boost as well over the lava.
まずは一
So he's going to be RNG manipulating the enemies here, as well as his sub-pixel position, since it's so precise. This is by far the trick that is necessary. Well, not necessary, but it loses a lot of time if you fail this, about a minute and a
回
half.
ギリギリのところで対
And
処
it's a frame-perfect trick, so we'll see how they fare on this. The RNG manipulation can be quite complicated. You have to stand a lot and wait. Yeah, wait for the enemies to kind of get into position here.
方法があるので、自信がないよって人はそっちを参照ください。爆弾準備して、さっそのビで
He's gonna pull a bomb, and then try to shield bump the Stalfos, and then get boosted by the bomb and an arrow that the green guy shoots up. So it's like a triple boost. Ah, he missed the buffer there, so like we mentioned earlier in D2 skip, pause buffering is very, very difficult in this game because you have to time them all manually.
So this gives an opportunity for Shiba to take the lead.
And the game runs at like 60 frames per second, so yeah. You actually notice that when they manipulate, like when they're doing this RNG manipulation, normally you want to get through like the title screen as fast as you can, because that screen where it says like press start, it actually rolls RNG on like every other frame that it's there. So you want to get through that as fast as possible, but since we have to roll so much RNG to get on the correct seed for this one, like you see they do extra screen transitions and stuff, it's actually faster to wait a bit on that screen to advance RNG for you. Let's see Shiba here on the 4 skips wall.
Ooh, that was good.
First
Very
try,
nice.
very nicely done.
Those are really good buffers.
That's a very
like
difficult trick.
Buffering like that is really hard. Every time you see a buffer, it's probably frame perfect or close to frame perfect.
Yeah, and you have to time those.
Ooh,
So
okay, that's fine.
it is very, very difficult. So hopefully
Yeah,
we
what
can
you
see
saw
Armageddon as well.
was a bomb boost or a shield boost into a bomb boost into an arrow boost from the Sulfos. Very, very complicated trick.
And just like in Dungeon 2, we're just gonna leave a dungeon now that we have dungeon item. Since we don't actually need to finish that dungeon. So that trick basically saves like 3.5 minutes, I believe, if you get it first try over going through the dungeon up till that point. So it's a very big time save, but also very, very difficult. So it was really nice to see him get that.
And it skips a really dumb dungeon too.
Yeah, the dungeon is also one of the most difficult ones, so it's really nice. Skip over that. Now Shiba's going to be heading to Dungeon 5. He's doing a small quest here with the Gorons. But since we already killed the Moblin King earlier on the run, it's a fairly short segment to get in.
Ooh,
that looks good. Very nicely
nice.
done. That was like third try, I think. Second try on the jump, very nice. This is like one of the scariest tricks for a marathon overall, because it is frame perfect, and like we mentioned, it wastes a ton of time to fail it. So yeah, it's very nice to see them get it fairly quickly in a setting like this.
Yeah, right. It's actually a little bit faster to save inside the dungeon and do more screen transitions, but it can be dumb, like if you forget to do it. You have to save after you fail the trick. Then your menus are all messed up, and that's not worth it for a lot of people.
Yeah, so you would just want to save as soon as you enter the dungeon in that case, and
right.
Like in the manipulation normally, since you have to roll so much RNG, I guess I didn't really mention it earlier, but the screen transitions, they roll RNG by 256 times, and compared to like sword slashes and shovels that roll a one time, so they did like 4 screen transitions in the manipulation, extra ones, in order to set up the RNG. If you were to save inside the dungeon, you would have to do like 8 of them, I believe, in order to back it up. We've also completely skipped over the fact that they're in Dungeon 5 now, where Shiba is, and he's also only going to get the dungeon item in this one before leaving, which is the Cane of Samaria, which is only required for 1 room as well, so we can find a way to skip that room or do it without this cane. We could skip going into that dungeon as well, but we still have to go in there, because we're only human after all. And here's he's going to be doing another example of the text warp he did earlier in the run for the 2 skip. There's a setup here with pulling the bomb and shooting the owl. Yeah, first try. That trick is also frame perfect, but not nearly as nerve-wracking as something like D4 skip, since you can just line up the pixel and you have as much time as you want. So yeah, interestingly enough, it actually brings him to almost the same area as the one we did earlier in the run. It's just the time save over going there the normal way,
それを
really.
同
Doesn't
時に行
sequence
って
break
しまうと
anything.
片方の動作が片方の動作によって上書きされてなかったことになってしまうんですね。
But now we're gonna do a lot of mini
今の
games, or
テキス
Shiba
トワ
is
ークっていうの
anyway.
はそれを悪
This
用した
section
もの
is
でし
like
て、
a really
マップ
weird
の端っこ
trading
にある
side quest to try to
マッ
get
プから移動
2
する
keys for
ダンジョン
D6.
移動するよ
One
ってい
for
う
the past, one for the present.
本来あるはず
In
のワープ
order
のフラ
to
グ
get
を
the items we need to
テキスト
trade,
が発生
we
す
have
る
to
フラグ
complete
で
mini
塗り
games,
替えてしまって
including Goron dancing.
別の場所にワープしてる。
And that's also
こんな
why they
ワープ
needed extra
が増えています。
rupees, more than the
詳し
ones
いことをさら
that
に説明
they
する
needed
と、
for the flute and the
その全
shield
国の
earlier that they
不
bought
思議
after
な機械の動
D3,
ける
because
マッ
these
プがどういう
minigames
背
also
景になって
cost
るかと
money,
かそういう話に
and
なってきて、
hopefully we
とても
won't
膨
see
大にな
any
ってしまうので、ちょ
fails.
っと割愛させていただくんですけども、
This first minigame is
気にな
Goron
った方は
dancing. It's basically just a
ディスコードのサー
version
バ
of
ーの
like
方に行って
Simon
いただ
Says
け
or
れば、
whatever. You just
それっぽい
copy
こと
what
は
the
書いてあり
middle
ます。
Goron does. You can actually input them slightly before you're supposed to. You hear like the little jingle thing that tells you when you're supposed to do it, but it allows you to
移動
input the
する
move
に
slightly
フ
before
ラグをフラ
that,
グで上書
which
きして悪いことしてる
they sound
と
a
思
bit
っていただけ
distorted,
れば
but they
間違
work
いあって
just
ます。
fine. And he wants to ideally do the shortest dance patterns he can, but it's luck dependent. We don't manipulate this area as it's not really worth it. So
しばらくはミニ
You
ゲーム
only
とか
need 6 completed ones, so optimally you'll fail 2 of them, and you'll try to fail like the longer
その
ones.
鍵をゴロン族が
yeah, so he failed those on purpose.
頂戴するんですけど、ミニゲームする必要があるのでしばらくは
Luckily in this area, there's a lot of Pegasus seeds in these bushes, so we don't really have to go back to the tree to refill
ダンス
them.
ゲームなのに、
That's
ダンスゲーム
normally
とリズ
like
ムゲー
in,
ムな
for
のに、
example, Oracle of Seasons,
音
that's
が
a
ないと
big
ちょっ
part
と
of
寂しいですよ
the
ね。
routing
毎
that
回
you
やっ
have
て
to
ると思う
go
んですよ
back to the tree all the time
で
to
もこの
refill your
ミニゲー
seeds
ムが
using the Gale seeds that he got earlier, which basically just allow you to warp between those trees that we've been seeing them go to.
確かに、回るパ
That's
ターンあ
very
りなんです
interesting.
よ。
I did not know you could make
回
that
答
That
し
was a
ます
weird
と、
scene
pixel.
look go up a
このダンス
tile.
ゲーム、
I
パターンが決まってます。
that's very cool. I've never seen that
どういう
before.
パターンがあるかっていうのがもうランダムに出てくるだけなので、覚えてしまえばすごく楽です。正直やって
And
る
you
だけ
saw
で、
that rock enemy just walk through him
なんだろう
without
なって気持
damaging
ちにな
him
って
because
よく
when you warp
設
through
定
time
士
like
がやっ
that,
てますね
you have a lot of invisibility
コメ
frames
ン
for
ト見
whatever
たり
reason.
ツイッター見たり
He's coming up here on my favorite minigame, which is called Target Cards, and it's the best one because you can do a lot of swag shots on this one
RTA 奏者
if
の
you're
皆さん、
brave
こう
enough.
いった暇な時間、
Looks like
ツイ
he's
ッタ
just
ー見
gonna
た
be
り、他
shooting
の
them
配
like
信見たりして
normal
ること
though,
が多い
but
ですけども、
the objective of the
どうも
minigame is just to
そう
shoot
そう
these
だったり
like
するんですかね。
rupees. You have to shoot all of them with the seed shooter in order to
ちょい
win.
ちょいツイッターでリプ飛んできてるの今見てる
And these are all just to gain some story items.
Shooting the
柴塚さ
Goron
んの
though,
方は
I'd love to
豆
see
鉄
it.
砲で、クリスタルに攻撃をする射的ゲームですね。それが終わったところです。次、第3のミニゲームですね。
And he's going to be warping in time here and do my least favorite minigame, which is the Goron shooting gallery, or as I like to call it, the baseball minigame. Essentially, how it works is that he's trying to win. He only needs 100 points to win, so
基本的には
knocking the ball into like the blue ones give you 30 points, I believe, and the purple ones give like minus 10 or something. But since he only needs 100 to win, he's just gonna be waiting for a pattern that this one right here with the angel and the blue one, and it's gonna give him 130 points. Ooh, he missed the ball there, so he's gonna have to get another one, but it should be fine here. Yeah.
Yeah, he has 100.
The strat for this game is basically just to hit the ball downwards, and that's because when you miss the ball like he just did earlier, you actually lose 50 points, which is pretty bad, obviously, when you already have 100 points. But if you slash the ball and just don't hit anything, you get 0 points instead of losing points. So you just want to slash it downwards once you have enough points, rather than playing the minigame more and getting more points, because that's extra text boxes that you want to avoid.
So that guy gives you Goron aid.
ミニゲーム一つ一つは結構
It's
奥
like the
深いので、
Goron sports
意外と
drink
や
or
ってたら時
something.
間があっという間に過ぎ去ってることもあります。
And you give that guy, or that Goron aid to Goron. He'll give you something else so that you can get the key. It's a long process.
プラスの得点、紫に当てるとマイナスの得点で、
Yeah, there's 2 more minigames remaining after this one. One of them is a redo of Goron dancing again. Before we enter the 6th dungeon, which is actually the last dungeon of the run, surprisingly enough.
Also, I think gets a pot from that Goron in the present and gives it to this Goron in the past. But it's the same pot both times. It gets passed down to the present Goron. So where does the pot come from? We're not sure.
早い段階で
Don't think about
目
it.
当てのその石像が出てくると、後半めちゃめちゃめんどくさいのよね。
そうですね。
一番最後やったらその最後の1回だけ剣振ればいいからいいんやけど。
Like we said, everything in this game makes
最初の
total
方に入れちゃう
sense.
と全部マイナスにならないようにちゃんと当てないといけない。
空振りしたり打てなくなるとマイナス50点なんで、その辺はめんどくさいってことですね。
そうね。
いよいよ最後のミニゲームですね。このミニゲー
And
ム
yeah,
は
here's gonna be doing the Big Bang
一
minigame,
番のクセモ
which
ノです。
is named that because he's gonna have a lot of bombs thrown at him, and you just have to avoid all of the bombs. It's fairly simple actually. It looks like a scary minigame, but you can really just kind of jump around in a circle, like run around and jump in a circle, and they just won't really hit you normally.
ただ
I
この
failed
含ま
in
れる
my
効
age
果
is
を
any percent
一
PP
応主
somehow.
人公ゼモゲフ君
Yeah,
が送ってくれるんで
It
すけど
loses a bit of time if you fail this, even more the later you do it, but looks like Shiba had no trouble with
比較
it.
的いい配置でしたかね。
So that's nice. It is actually bad if you fail the minigames because they cost money to replay as well, so you would be short on rupees,
着
but
地した瞬間爆発
luckily he has enough. You only need to spend 20 more in order to play the last minigame.
Also, on all of these mini games, after you finish,
オリバーさんの方はどう
the
でしょ
guy
う
asks you if you're gonna play again, and the cursor defaults to yes. So if you
Yeah.
just mash A, you'll play the mini game again, and it's really annoying.
個人的に嫌いなマップですね。
ああ、そう先ほどしばづけさんがやってたぐるぐる回るようなマップと、こんな感じで上下の2方向に分かれているマップ、2つのパターンがあります。
Here's the second instance of Goron dancing, and it's completely identical to the
余裕
first,
でクリアですね。
but you're required to do it twice in this game.
しばづけ
For
さん
some
のこれ
reason.
ダンスゲーム始まってる。
I think normally in a casual playthrough you would do the first one in the present, which is slightly different, but basically the same. But it just allows you to do it here as well, so I don't really see the point, honestly. You could have also done this way earlier in the game if you wanted to, like when you did that sequence break to get here for D2 skip, but no real point. The tool-assisted speedrun, the old one at least, does that. So that's quite an interesting route. And yeah, like we mentioned earlier, you want to fail the minigame twice on purpose here in order to
ダンスゲームでした。
just save some time there, not having to dance out all the patterns, as you only need to win 6 out of 8.
長いところはあえ
Also,
て失敗
failing
する
the
ことで
last one skips like the you failed text box, so if you can
そういった
fail the
と
last
ころ
one,
が
it's
ある
pretty
程度テク
nice.
ニックだったりしますが、
This is
ゲ
D6.
ームタイムですね。
Yeah.
This is probably the hardest dungeon and most complicated in the run. There's a lot that's going to be going on, and most of it will be in a minute. But these Kanos are probably the worst enemy in the game, honestly.
このろうそくにあちしの
They
と
run
どめを
everywhere,
与え
they
る
do a
と
full
こんな
heart of
感じに火が
damage
ついて
even without
暴れ回
powering.
って最後は爆発して
Yeah,
しま
they
う
can be
random.
very deadly if you don't have good control of the
すごく
situation.
機動性
Luckily,
は
he
あるんで
didn't
すけ
get
ど
hit
も
there.
予想するのがとても大変な
And
の
here
で
he's gonna
割
do
と
one
ダ
of
メー
the
ジ食らっ
uses of
て
the sense
HP
heats
が
that
足
we
りない
got
と
him
いう状況
for,
に
and it's to
なってしまうことが
lure
多
these
かった
guys into the pit there. It's slightly faster than jumping over and killing
快適
them.
ですね。
There is a room similar to that as well,
3回戦うので
in the present, I guess. But in that one, you actually cannot jump over.
Ooh.
体力は
Oh, he ended up having to use his potion there.
That's okay.
皆さん
Yeah, those enemies can be
最初
quite annoying because the ones with the
15
sword
分くらい
actually
ところ覚えてます
they
で
like
しょうか
chase you when they see you, so you can't open doors if you have one of those next to you.
It's actually pretty crazy to hit them sometimes, especially with the rod.
And these blue Wisps here are also a very good contender to the worst enemy in the game, because they also like go after you and they take a lot of hits to kill. They do a lot of damage. I believe it's 3/4 of a heart, so that's very annoying.
This room is just stupid. It's just
There
not
he
fun.
actually took an intentional grab by the hand, and that's to get back to the beginning of the dungeon. Normally you would save and quit to do that, but it's slightly faster to get grabbed by the hand.
あ、大丈夫です。
Yeah,
And
the
he
point
had
was
to
to blow
bomb
up
that
that
wall.
wall. Yeah, it changes the layout of the dungeon in the present.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on right now. Is just we're trying to Shiba and Orma are setting flags that change the orientation in the present, like this here. You'll notice Shiba's just going to save and quit and hard reset after this to start a minute.
You have to light those torches in a certain order, which the owl tells you, I'm pretty sure, if you use mystery seeds on it. But yeah, now he's going to be doing manipulation, also found by, or no, this one was found by Nevelin actually, but it's going to be manipulating the mini boss of the dungeon called Vire. And normally in a casual playthrough or like without manipulations, it's a very obnoxious mini boss because he's very random with his movement and can be very annoying to deal with. So the manipulation will save a lot of time, assuming they can get it. It also just makes the rest of the dungeon a lot less stressful because a lot of the enemies can do a lot of damage and they can destroy you pretty hard.
自分のダンジョン6の中盤なんですけど、中盤でも乱数調整します。
D6 乱数調整ありましたね。えぐいの。えぐいというか、やらなきゃいけないやつがありましたね。
Oh, looks like you barely missed that jump. Yeah, free tile jumps can be... Oh, unfortunately, taking a death there actually is quite bad. Yeah, looks like he's gonna retry the minute.
That's best, honestly. That's what I would do.
Actually allows Orma to catch up as well. But hey, closer race, that's what we want. We want to see a good race between the two runners.
Yeah, those 3 tile jumps are like a 1 or 2 frame window, maybe 3, depending on how you're positioned. It's pretty hard.
Yeah. Typically you want to align yourself kind of in between 2 tiles, because it gives it a little bigger leeway. On that one, it's slightly more difficult though, since there's just one you can land on, one tile.
Yeah, the pit physics in this game are pretty weird. They'll try to pull you to the center of the pit, so if you're on the side, you have a little bit more time before you fall.
Yeah, there's actually, you can actually abuse that also in a tool-assisted setting in order to just walk between 2 pits forever using a technique known as pit walking, but it's way too precise for humans to do, and it's TAS only. Here he's also going to be manipulating this Wisp to the left just to cut out the cycle of the like turning spinner thing. It's very nice. They used to do that even before that manip was known, but it was way worse because you would have to rely on luck for the Wisp to spawn over there, which could cost a lot of time in some cases. So luckily here we can just always get it first try. And yeah, now they're both going to be coming up for the mini boss here, Vire, which is manipulated and also takes a lot fewer hits with the power ring than normal. And yeah, looks like he has the good RNG, so let's see if he can execute the fight well. Very well done.
So, Orma's going to try to continue this manip. It's not necessary, required, and it's pretty hard, but hopefully it works out. The boss key is really random, how it spawns. You'll see later. But in the rooms before, leading up to it, there's a bunch of keys, which make the manip really inconsistent, so we'll see what happens.
Looks like Shiba also successfully got the Vire manip, so very nice from both runners. It's actually important to grab this fairy quickly as well, or not really actually, but fairies also roll RNG when they move around on the screen.
Yeah.
And that bomb throw that they do to that crack block, it's actually surprisingly precise as well. there's been like many times where I just missed that bomb for over and over again, and it happens to like every runner. It's
yeah, there's a
dumb.
setup for it, but if you miss the setup, you just have to kind of wing it. So this is the boss key room. When you pull the lever, the first one is guaranteed to not work, and after that, it's just a 1 in 4 chance of whether or not it'll spawn the boss key. So Oroma's gonna try to manip here. It might take a lot of slashes. Very nice.
Nicely done. That was pretty fast too.
Yeah, that's a pretty difficult manip. You have
So
to memorize
normally-
several patterns.
Yeah.
It's very nice to see it first try.
Normally, it's a 1 in 4 chance if you can get it from every subsequent try after the first one, since the first one is guaranteed to be a fail. So it would be a 1 in 4, and at the very end of like an Aegis run, that's like soul crushing to just lose so much time to RNG here, obviously.
See Shiba's not doing the manip here. He's just gonna try to.
Oh, but he gets a
Nice.
second
Second
try
try.
anyway, so that about cuts even with doing the manip, I'd say. So very nice
Right.
though. Interesting candle
Okay,
pattern
so
there.
this is another manip. This is manip is going to first manip the candles in that room because they're really dumb. And second to try to get a shield bump to skip a small key. But this manip is really stupid because you can't really reliably manip. Well, you kind of can, but not really. You can't really manip the jellyfish. So if they get in your way and shock you, the manip's just kind of over. It looks like this is a pretty good pattern, so it shouldn't have an issue. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, and it also kind of manipulates those snakes as well to be very close to you. They can be very obnoxious to kill underwater, just due to how difficult the movement is and those like things sucking you in.
But having the candles all close together and know where they're gonna move is really, really nice.
And he's gonna try for a trick here with the manip as well, known as, I guess, the small key skip or bridge skip, where
Yeah.
normally you need to get an additional small key in order to unlock a block and then spawn a bridge to the boss door. But with a well-timed shield boost and a bomb boost as well with an enemy that's manipulated, it's possible to cross those tiles in order to just jump to the boss door early. It involves using the bats, or the keys, which are obviously quite tough to RNG manipulate since their movement is so erratic, so hopefully we can see him get it here first try. There's a setup for it. Gonna throw the bomb and then try to shield boost off of the keys.
ブリッジスキップですね。
Very
Very
nice.
nice.
First
そういうこと
try.
ですね。
It's actually possible to do that with a bomb boost along with a damage boost from the keys as well, but it was a lot more difficult and more precise than that one.
Slower.
And slower.
This is all around a better setup, except for the underwater section. But otherwise, it's a really nice manip.
And this boss here, you just kind of slash him. He goes underwater sometimes, so with the powering, he doesn't take too long to kill. He actually has a really weird quirk on the North American release, where he can just sometimes, when you dive up, just disappear from the battlefield. It's to do with some very strange mechanics, but...
Shiba's gonna attempt the shield bump here as well. That looks like a good position.
Very nice. Both got him first try. That's really, really nice to see in a marathon setting. Very, very nice.
Oops.
Not only is that trick a little tough on the frame window, but it also costs a ton of time if you fail it. Like, it's not really feasible to retry it normally, because in that scenario you would just go down and get the small key anyway, and it's a really slow small key to get, so it saves around 1.5 minutes to execute that skip first try. Hopefully we don't see him die here.
Oh.
Ah, that's really unfortunate. That boss does a lot of damage when you have the powering on.
I wonder what's
And it
best
can
to do
be-
here.
it can be quite difficult to hit him on certain angles too, so that really sucks.
Looks like, yeah, Shiba's just going to go and get the key normally.
Yeah, that's respectable, especially if you're not practiced in the other method of doing the trick. It can be
Yeah, for sure.
quite tricky, so...
So Shiba went to a screen and then just saved and quit. That's important for a little bit later.
Yeah, Orma. He's gonna also fight a boss here, which we need a switch hook and the mystery seeds for. And it's gonna be the last thing we basically need to do before we can finish the run-up, since it's gonna give us the last harp tune, the Tune of Ages. It allows us to just warp between the present and past at will, so basically just the ultimate harp tune, really. And it's gonna allow for some very exciting stuff to happen later on as well. This was basically like the main goal of the entire run, was to get the last harp song. And he also did an RNG manipulation for this fight. Normally, she can like warp around as much as she wants to, like it's RNG, kind of like Ganon warps in Link to the Past. But with an RNG manipulation, you can just get him to do one warp every time. And you'll see Shiba here having to do this puzzle here that we used to have to do before the skip was found. To be RTA viable, you just have to put these switch hook blocks into this area here in order to get a small key. So, you want to try starting to explain the stuff that's going to happen?
Yeah, so basically, we're going to do, you saw the text warp we did to get to Dungeon 2 skip area, and after D5. We're going to do that the same thing here, but it's not going to take us to a very nice place. It's going to take us to a very glitched screen, and if we go up, we're actually going to be on a screen outside of the normal area where you can travel. Then we're going to go to a very specific screen that corresponds to the screen that Orama just kind of went to and saved and quit out of. By going to that screen, we're able to select that tile. And selecting that tile does some really weird things depending on the situation. And it can be used to activate arbitrary code execution. And basically you can do a setup to make the game read your file name as game code. And the file name that both runners have set up basically activates the menu that opens up the child's name when you go in to name the child like they did before Dungeon 2. So they have a setup that basically does two things. It runs the child's name as game code and opens up the menu for you to do it again. Basically allowing you to have almost infinite control over the game. Not infinite, but a lot of control over the game, RTA, to do a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, there's the text swap, and he's gonna save before.
Good call.
In case he messes something up.
So yeah, the game isn't very happy right now, as you can see.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is that they're gonna do a trick famously known as arbitrary code execution, and it's gonna be set up here with quite an interesting setup here, found by SPD, where they're going to be using the object data on a specific screen where you can select the glitch tile, and basically what's going to happen is he's going to manipulate his subpixel here by jumping in a certain way, and then he's going to pull a bomb after creating a series of other objects here, and the game is going to read the subpixels of the bomb, which are directly derived from Link subpixels, and because of the file name, it's going to open up a glitched version of the child name entry screen that you saw him enter much earlier in the run when he had to name that kid in the town. This is that same screen that he was using. So this basically just allows him to write in a ton of different Japanese names here in order to execute arbitrary code.
Every name he's writing, the game runs as game code as he's writing it. Like after he closes the menu, it gets run.
And the goal here... Yeah, and the goal here is going to be to corrupt his Oracle of Ages file. And then when you link it into Oracle of Seasons with a link cable, a lot of the corruption is going to be kind of carried over, and it's going to corrupt I think it's the animal companion value that it corrupts in Seasons, and a lot of other stuff there. So it's going to like completely break the Seasons file in a way that is just completely insane. And like I said in the beginning of the run, the goal is to reach the linked ending of both games. So you want to link the game into Oracle of Seasons and then reach the ending as fast as possible. So that's going to be the plan here once they corrupt the Aegis file. So all of these names here, you see here the bomb exploded, which means that he is going to have to set up the bomb again here in order to make in order for him to be able to enter more names. So it's all very confusing for just the casual viewer to follow. I don't really understand everything either, but you basically just need to type out these series of Japanese names, and it's going to corrupt the file due to the nature of arbitrary code execution.
It worked.
And
So
looks like you got a
file
first
name
try there.
change. Okay, so now look at the seasons gameplay on the screen. He's going to link the games together, then open up the game, hit select, and wait for it.
And that's it, basically. So now he's in the... So now he triggered a linked ending in Seasons for just opening the map there, just due to how corrupted the file was, and it's not quite time yet, because you see he can still move around there for whatever reason in the sequence, so time's gonna be right there when the run fades to white, as that's when you lose control and can't crash the game anymore, so... GG's to Orma, taking first place in the race. That is, yeah, very nice marathon time. 1:30.02. That's tied with the old 80% world record for ages, actually. But that was a very different run from this one.
Not sure what he's doing now, but he's doing something.
Yeah, now he's just like gonna mess around with the glitch and ages, I guess. But yeah, you can see in Seasons, the credits are playing for the linked game, so... And yeah, you can trigger it in Ages as well, if you do the glitch again here. So he's gonna trigger the ending in both games, just for fun. But the goal of the category was to trigger in Seasons, so he was already done there. But you can also do this if you want. So yeah, now we can see the linked ending twice. You also see, funnily enough, like some of the stuff still carries over, so you can see a cane block in that house down there, and that's the cane block that was on screen when he set up the glitch. It's not normally supposed to be there. And you get to see Baguette Nehru as well, the best sprite.
Ooh.
See Shiva taking an unfortunate death there to the enemies. Still has the powering equipped, so they deal quite a bit of damage, but yeah. He just has to set up the glitch as well, and we're gonna hope that he also does it clean like Orma did, and then that'll be it for his run as well.
Shout out to Dren for discovering all of this link cable vulnerability stuff.
Yeah.
There's a write-up on his GitHub link blog you can find.
I can link
goes
that
into
actually.
very good detail. Yeah, that'd be great. If
Right
you
there.
are smart enough to understand what's going on, he goes into really great detail on how the link cable ace works.
Yeah, I mean, I've ran the game for over 2 years at this point, and I can barely understand all of the stuff in that post, but it's still a very interesting read to understand how everything works, so, like, I don't know how they come up with all of this stuff. Dren and SPD have just completely destroyed the games, really, with arbitrary code execution. Just shoutouts to both of them, and also to people like, you know, Segas, Naviland for discovering Manip, even like Glyph here is discovering the Manip in Dungeon 6. I don't even... Have I done anything for this game? I guess I made the D2 skip setup. That's about it.
I made the backup when you fail it.
Yeah, we're gonna see Shiba here also starting to enter these Japanese names. Yeah, if you don't really have any... If you don't feel like learning Japanese, you can do what us two did for this run and just write down the inputs directly that you have to do to write in the names, and it's a simpler method, I guess.
I have a text document that shows up, left, right, A, select, A.
Yeah, same here.
Things like that.
You understood
nothing? That's fine.
That's very normal. But yeah, that post that I linked in chat there, it's basically like a much more in-depth explanation by the person who actually discovered all of this nonsense. So definitely check out that if you're interested in stuff like this, but
Also,
yeah.
this whole run was pretty much just identical to Ages any %, except for the file name stuff and having to name the kid. Everything else was pretty much the same, which is pretty interesting.
Which is also cool to see, because last year they had seasons any %, so now they've showcased basically the any % of both games. Now all that's left is all essences and 100%.
めっちゃ LINE 飛んできた。Twitter に置いてやないか。
そして最後。セゾンヌ。
Looks like Shiba's almost done here.
Yeah, I just need to set up the glitch again.
Hope that doesn't crash. Oh, that crashed.
No, he just has to redo it. He didn't make enough objects, I believe.
Yeah,
so
I thought the sense or the mystery seed left the screen. Sometimes it crashes if you do it wrong, so I was kind of scared that the game just crashed. But
yeah, luckily it's fine though, and that was the last one it looks like. So let's see if he got it. He got it. Very nice. So now all he has to do is link the game into Oracle of Seasons, just like Orma did. Then start that file, open the map when he spawns here, and that's gonna trigger the ending sequence for both games. Looks like he did something incorrect there.
Sometimes the game crashes if you hit select too late or something. It's weird. I don't understand.
It is, yeah, it can be quite particular with how it works, but yeah, this time he looks like he did the right thing, so it should be time very soon. Once he can no longer control Link, like I said. The white fade on after this next screen here, so both players well underestimate, very nicely done. Looks like he's also gonna trigger the ending in Ages for fun. You can see the 2 the end screens for Orma. Maybe we'll see 4 of them if they give them enough time.
Next time.
GG's to both runners. It was very nice race until Dungeon 6, where unfortunately mistakes happen for Shiba, but they still very nice. They managed the skips very well. I mean, Shiba got first try D4 skip. They both got the bridge skip first try. And D2 skip was
underwater
minimal
section. We gotta see all
skip.
of it. I just gotta see more of the game, you know. Yeah, Dungeon 6 is really punishing. It's really tough, especially with only 5 hearts. So it's a really big reset point in PB attempts, for sure.
こんなんじゃ満足できない。ちゃんとしたやつが見たいっていう方はね、実は去年しば漬けさんが走られてますので、よかったらそちらを確認してください。ちゃんとしたかどうかは、まあこれよりかはちゃんとしてます。
Looks like subpixels are wrong.
はい、これよりはちゃんとしてます。
But that's okay, because he did the part that matters. So
good to see a crash too. That's good.
Really getting to see everything that the games have to offer in a speedrun setting.
Definitely.
So
I hope you guys enjoyed the run.
Yeah, that's it for us. I think they're doing Majora's Mask after this, I believe. No major glitches, so that should be pretty exciting. Look forward to that. That should be
100%
fun.
SGDQ 2022.
選ばれまして、
That sounds fun.
おー
I'm sure they will accept that. Definitely.
1時ぐらいから
Especially if it's in person.
結構有名な方が行うので
But yeah, I think that's it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed the speedrun.
結構こっちは
Definitely go check these guys out. They both stream on Twitch regularly. So
Yeah, they run this
definitely
game like
recommend.
very often, so
時空の章の
yeah.
2% 世界記録で
And there's also an Oracle's Discord if you're interested in the games whatsoever. There's a lot of resources in there and a lot of
手
helpful
に戻れ
people.
たままのはずなんで。
不思議の木の実をね、こう持っていった人です。
です
But
ね。
yeah, I guess
流
we'll
星
see
の
you
ごとく
all
現れて
later.
流星のごとく世界を去って取って。
はい。ということで、そちらもぜひ皆さん見てあげてください。
何でした
この後が、
そうですねはい
はい、この後がムジュラの仮面、ゼルダの続きになります。そっちも共に時をいじるゲームなので、ちょうどいいかもしれないですね。では、僕らはこれで終わろうかなと思います。
解散しますか。
で、運営さん、あとはお任せします。では、お疲れ様でした。
お疲れ様でした。
でした。